Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. I'm flying solo this week, but we've got a fun topic today. We're going to talk about the idea of being ready on defense and what that really means and why it's something that a lot of teams are not doing a very good job of. Before we get into that, though, let's talk about patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. Folks, we need some more people to come on board and become patrons. We've added a few people here in the last few weeks, and that's been great. We've had a couple of people that have even increased their support over the last few weeks, and we certainly do appreciate them and all of our patrons, the people that have been supporting us and have supported us for these years. It's a really great thing. But the reality of the podcast business is the services, servers, and all the different things that we need to get the podcast out to you keep getting more expensive, and we're back in the red. There's just no easy way to say it. We had a couple of months where we weren't making really much of a profit, but at least we weren't losing money. And unfortunately, that's just not the case anymore. So if you see value in what we're doing, you want to support us, please go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. We certainly would appreciate it. So this week we want to talk about the idea of getting ready to play defense. There's many different ways that you can prepare to field your position. But one of the things that I think is most important, that I think is unfortunately under-taught and certainly under-practiced, is the idea of moving to ready. Sir Isaac Newton, I think it was, told us that a body at rest tends to stay at rest. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. And the trick is being in motion, but being in motion and under control enough that we can react to the ball and go wherever the ball really is. So whether it's ready steps or the hop or just moving your feet, stepping into the hula hoop, whatever of the different techniques that you want to use or that you want to teach, any of those is useful and beneficial. But what I'm seeing over and over again is too many players, especially young players, who think the idea of being ready to play defense is one hand on their hip, both hands on their knee, both heels firmly in the ground with they sort of look like they're kind of ready, but they really are not ready to move in any direction at all. And that's why I wanted us to talk about this topic today, because coaches, it's definitely something that we need to practice, we need to emphasize. And there's a lot of different videos out there now that talk about the different techniques. But the one thing I can't help but notice is that I've seen a couple on social media where the frame is just on the shortstop and third baseman, and you can see them both moving almost like it's in unison, like it's a mirror of the same player. And when that ball's getting to home plate, they have both moved to a really good ready position. They're really dynamic. They're ready to go. And they've done a really good job of moving to that ready position, especially with younger players. I don't think that they have the experience or the knowledge yet to understand that this is one of those no-brainer kinds of things that every player should be doing. So we have to teach it. We have to practice it. We have to reinforce it. And honestly, we have to have some accountability when we don't do it. Again, we know as veterans, people that have been around the game for a long time, that games are lost all the time because of a couple of inches. I just didn't quite reach that ball. I just couldn't quite catch that ball in the gap. I couldn't quite get to that ground ball up the middle. And all of those could have, would have, should have kinds of plays where we're just a little bit short, the vast majority of them, I think we can look at and say that preparation and a player's readiness to move was a factor in the fact that they didn't make those plays. Now, not always. There's sometimes the kids move exactly like they're supposed to, get to a really good ready position. They're totally dynamic and ready to operate, and they still can't quite get there. But the reality of it is, for every one of those, I think there's 100 that don't quite get there because they weren't moving, they weren't ready. And on top of that, they're not anticipating anything. So what do we need to do, coaches? We first off need to teach some sort of uniform move to ready system, whether it's, like I said earlier, stepping into the hula hoop or the hop or right foot, right foot, whatever different system you want to use. It doesn't really matter as long as we're teaching that across the board to all our players. Then we can encourage them and reinforce it when they do it well. The add a baby, pat them on the back when they're doing it well in practice. And then we can start to use some, measuring ideas, whether it's cones on the field or lines on the field or something like that, to show them and give them some, concrete evidence that by having a really good ready position, by moving to ready well, that they're covering more ground, that they're getting to more balls. We have to put all these pieces together so that the players can start to understand that it's the most fundamental thing. But because it's so fundamental that unfortunately I think sometimes we just assume that players are doing it or we don't understand why it's so important. The second part of that is the anticipation part. We don't want to be guessing where we think the ball is going to be going, but there's a lot of information that a player who is truly ready to move can also be using to her advantage. Where the pitch is located, what the hitter's done in the past, speed of our pitcher, all those different kinds of things can give us a little bit of a heads up, a little bit of a inkling to where that ball is probably going to go when it does get hit. So if we can work on those two phases, the really good ready position where we're moving to ready, it's not just glove on the knee, hand on the knee, heels in the ground kind of thing, and start teaching that at a younger age, I think we're going to be really, really happy with the outcome. And I know our players are going to be that much better for it, that much stronger, and our team defense is going to improve greatly. Being truly ready is a skill that we have to practice, and we want to start doing that right now. That's going to wrap up this edition of Coach Prep. Please make sure you go to the fastpitchprep.com website, order your Square Cuts training discs there. There's $49.95 a dozen. We'll get them shipped out to you right away. You also have access to the YouTube channel and the blog post. There's tons and tons of information. If you're looking for drill ideas, something that you can add to your practice routine, whether it's hitting, fielding, throwing, we've got tons and tons of information available to you there. Go to the fastpitchprep.com website. Make sure you contact us with questions, comments, ideas, topics at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. And definitely Player of the Week nominations for the Everything Fast Pitch podcast. We're going to just keep beating that drum, too. We would love to see more players nominated. So, unfortunately, Coach Don and I couldn't get together this week, but we'll be back together next week. And for our producer, Stan Lewis, this is Coach Torrey. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.